Okay, so I have a mold that was taken directly from a model's body, and this is his arm from his shoulder to fingertips, and I've cast it with a plaster material, and I'm ready to open it up and see how it came out. I have the mold held together just with some pieces of packing plastic. And so I'm taking that plastic off so then I can access the exterior shell of the mold, which is in two different pieces. And once I pull the plaster shell off, which supports the silicone, then I can start to peel the silicone off of the plaster cast. So getting this shell off, which we sometimes refer to as a mother mold, can be a little tricky because it's a tight fit. So sometimes plaster seeps over the edges of these molds and makes the support shell stick in ways that aren't great, and that has happened here. I'm using a flathead screwdriver in an inappropriate way, like a chisel, and a rubber mallet. Okay, so we have the mother mold all the way off. So I can start to peel back the silicone. So when I'm doing this, I need to be careful not to rip the silicone. And when there's recessed pockets like this, I can just fill those with more plaster later. But for now, I usually just go in and lightly chip away the raised surfaces that I don't want. And I'm being really careful because I don't want it to be obvious that I've altered the mold. You know, the benefit of doing a live cast is getting all of the incredible detail of the actual skin of a real body, and so I'm trying to preserve as much of that as possible. This is a recast. This is the second time I've cast this mold, because the first time I was working on it, I was almost done, and I was trying to carve away too much of this 2x4 here that's in the hand, and I was too aggressive with the mallet, and it broke at the wrist. This cast should be stronger, and also I'm not going to try to get rid of the 2x4 in the hand. I'm going to instead alter the structure that this sits on so that this chunk can remain. So there's a lot of plaster around the fingers because there were air bubbles around the fingers. It's really hard to get the silicone into all those fine areas when you're life casting, which is a pretty fast, intense process. So I'll slowly carve that away to reveal more of the fingers. So when I'm doing this, when I'm by myself in the studio, I usually just jump around to different spots. Like I don't hyper focus in one area. At this point, I would probably focus on cutting this plane flat. Would you like to see that? Or
sure. Yeah.
I'm just going to get a big saw.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I've cut off the big chunks that were at the end of the mold, and there's still a little bit more overhang than I would like. I would like this end to be more flush. I could use the saw, but sometimes I prefer to just use this rasp to more slowly remove the material so that I don't make a cut that's too aggressive and go deeper than I would like. So everything I've been doing so far has been reductive, which has some similarities with stone carving. But the thing that I love about plaster is that it can also be additive. And so there's a dip in this plane right here that I could keep carving away at and remove material until this plane is flush. But I'm kind of liking this angle that I'm getting. So I might just mix a small batch of plaster and pour that in here to fill that in. And then I would refine it after that plaster sets up. So as I'm using this tool, I'm always using my other hand to control the blade as well. I'm not just using one hand and letting the blade kind of slide around, but using this hand to keep the blade firmly where I want it to be. And it's interesting. I'm realizing now, like I'm teaching wheel throwing at the moment in one of my classes, and it's similar to what I teach in wheel throwing about always bracing your hands together to stabilize your body as you're throwing on the wheel. And so it's very similar to what I'm doing here with this tool. I had never made that connection before. The mold that this arm resulted from was cast, the mold was taken while a model had his arm on this structure here. And so the intention is to take the cast and return it to the structure and let the structure become a sculpture in its own right that has remnants of or memory of the model's presence. So it has a figurative presence without needing the whole body to be there. So I'll return this to its location, and there's a little bit of 2x4 in his hand right now that I'll have to cut away from the actual wood to make this fit properly. But it will sit at the same angle. You can see that flat spot on the bottom is where his arm was originally touching the 2x4. So I'll just keep altering this until it fits, so it sits on here perfectly. And then the sculpture will have the model's presence on it again. So I also took a mold of the model sitting, so I took his arm, and then he was sitting over here holding this basketball, like kind of cradling it, and so this casting will go right here as well. So there will be a section of his knee and hand and the basketball, and then this arm, and so you'll get a sense of the pose without having the whole body filled in. It's a very difficult process for the model, and it's really intense for me as the artist because I'm worried about the model being in pain. It's really hard to hold still. It's really hard to hold these untraditional poses. It's not like he's just sitting in a chair or something, but he's contorting his body in ways that would be hard to hold for short periods of time, and I'm asking him to really extend that moment. And so I build armature. So this is an armature to support his body in that pose, but we also build that me and my assistants build additional supports. So he had a structure in his right hand that was free while we were doing this casting, and he would, he could lean on that a little bit more and move it around to allow his body to adjust as this part of his body could not move at all. He was very still, so that it gave him a little bit of relief.
And I just have to ask, because I'm sure people are wondering, does he get a bathroom break in there or anything?
It's not possible. Yeah. I mean, he's encased in silicone and plaster, so we know ahead of time, this is going to be 3 hours, run around for a little bit, so, you're ready to be still, go use the restroom. Occasionally I'll give them a drink of water or something, but yeah, it's kind of, we know what we're getting into, everyone involved when we start, and we just know it's going to be really intense, and so, yeah.